Hi, everyone, and welcome into episode 10 of Gridiron Dynasty, a fantasy football podcast. I am your host, as always, Tim, joined by my co-host, Mr. Patrick. How are you doing tonight, Pat?
Doing well.
Yeah,
Doing well.
doing
How you
well.
doing?
Probably going to bring you a shorter one. We've kind of had a couple of longer episodes recently. There's not a lot to discuss in terms of our league and all that stuff. There were some significant injuries that happened this weekend that we'll dive into, sort of. None bigger than potentially Russell, because the implication that it has on other people. Yeah, other people got hurt. Like Saquon got hurt again, but that's supposed to just be like 1 to 2 week absence for him. Russell Wilson getting hurt, though, is a downgrade, obviously, for Russell Wilson because he can't play. And a downgrade for DK Metcalf. It's a downgrade for Tyler Lockett. It's a downgrade for Freddie Swain if you were throwing him as a dart throw in some instances. It's a downgrade for the running game because they're going to stack the box against the run game and say, here, Geno Smith, throw the ball. So,
Sounds like you're a Geno Smith hater. Is that what I'm? Is it because he was a Jet? Is that why? Does it bring back harsh memories?
it's not something I'd like to discuss.
Memories.
However, I did make the move to trade for DK Metcalf in one of my leagues because I do think DK Metcalf is going to get all the targets. Because if it was just, a quarter and a half of football from Geno Smith that we saw, and DK Metcalf was the guy for him, which he should be, you're not going to throw a 50-50 ball to Tyler Lockett. You're going to throw a 50-50 ball to DK Metcalf. So I think DK Metcalf, he's not going to be a monster like he usually is, but I think he'll be serviceable. Tyler Lockett, I'm not so sure of. They also have a tough matchup this week against Pittsburgh.
Wait and see, baby. Wait and see. Let's see what Geno Smith, after how many years you been on a bench for?
A while.
4, 5.
He's been on a bench for quite some time.
I mean, let's see what he's got. Right? He should look serviceable at the end of the game.
He did. He made the interception he threw wasn't the smartest throw to make. I'll give him that. But I believe it was Lockett, fell down on his route
at that point. So when you're chasing the game, you have a tendency to
throw it,
sling a little more,
a little bit.
Plus, you have no Carson. Collins was going nowhere. He had only one choice.
Right, and from
ball down the field.
And from what I've been hearing, Chris Carson, to me, it sounds like we'll be back this week. He didn't practice today, but Pete Carroll said that he took a big turn in the right direction when it comes to his neck injury. So I expect Chris Carson to be there Sunday night. If you have Chris Carson, you don't have Alex Collins, and you just see limited today, or limited on, today being Thursday when this comes out, and Friday, he's just limited on those 2 days. Pivot to someone else if you don't have Alex Collins. If you have Alex Collins, write it out until the Sunday night game if you think you can. But again, it's not a favorable matchup. Pittsburgh's defense is still Pittsburgh's defense. Whatever their issues are on offense, they are still an elite defense.
Especially up front.
Yes.
The secondary may have its question marks, but
front,
they are very solid.
And the secondary plays better than most secondaries because of that front. You have TJ Watt.
A lot of pressure.
Pressure creates diamonds, or it's that
or creates Geno Smith.
Yep. And if you're a Jets fan, you know all too well what happens when you pressure Geno Smith. But I'm hopeful for him a little bit. I'm not gonna lie.
He's got weapons.
He's got more weapons than he had in New York, for sure.
One would have beat that, so that's good. That's all you need.
He also has been a backup to one of the best quarterbacks in the league right now in Russell Wilson. So it's a system he is kind of a plug and play for Russell Wilson. He has that mobility that's needed, and he can stand in the pocket if he needs to, because Geno is actually a really athletic, and he had a good athletic profile coming out of college. It's just he is not the best decision maker, and that's what it was. He had the arm strength, he had the talent. It's just like every other quarterback the Jets draft, it's the decision making. That
until proven otherwise, Seattle is still a playoff team.
Right.
Now, we watched what happened to the 49ers last year when they lost their quarterback and they fell off the face of the earth.
Right.
So it's going to come down to What happens here?
It's Geno Smith's.
Geno Smith show.
110% there. We'll address the elephant in the room. John Gruden is out of football, probably for life.
Never been back in.
He's never going to come back. This is not something you can come back from, in my opinion, especially with the stance the NFL has taken against anything of that nature. Rightfully so. He shouldn't have a job. What that means for their team, absolutely nothing. The assistant coach has been a Gruden assistant coach for years. He's going to run Gruden's system pretty much still, so expect the same type of offense from the Raiders. The only thing that you might be able to expect is an extension for Derek Carr, seeing as the head coach that's there now does not hate him, because we don't know who the head coach is going to be in the offseason. So there is a possibility they extend Derek Carr now that Gruden's out, because Gruden, for some reason, hated Derek Carr. Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback. He's very accurate.
I think John Gruden hates winning, so it's just he's not good.
Yep.
I don't know how he got a 10-year contract in the first place.
10 years, what was it, $100 million?
Yeah, it's better than a quarterback gets. That's
for real.
So, I don't know. I didn't think that made any sense when it happened. Not because of this. I didn't see this coming.
Right.
But I don't.
He was out of coaching football for how long, and they gave him that contract? He was. Don't get me wrong. John Gruden on ESPN. John Gruden on ESPN was great. He was a great analyst on ESPN, but it's just.
Urban Meyer's a great analyst also. Maybe they can go back to that. Well, John Gruden ain't going back to that.
He's probably the only person that was.
Back to that.
He's probably the only person that was happy to see the John Gruden news, because that means he wasn't in the news anymore.
Got it off of him, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's. Everything else seems to be status quo in the NFL right now. The only thing that's not status quo is the Kansas City Chiefs, in last place still in the AFC West. They've had a tough go of it. Their offense does not look like the Kansas City offense that we're used to, and they just lost their running back. Darrell Williams is a serviceable replacement for a running back. They also have Jared McKinnon. They've been looking into Marlon Mack as well. Marlon Mack goes to Kansas City. That is kind of intriguing to me a little bit, depending on how bad CEH is hurt. Marlon Mack, I think, is a talented running back. But Kelsey, Hill, and Mahomes are still putting up fantasy points. It's just they're not winning games. And also they went against arguably the most well-rounded team in football in Buffalo. And by well-rounded, I mean they have a great running back by the name of Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Yep. So
they also have a great quarterback by the name of Josh Allen.
Very much so. And
it worked in Baltimore. Why can't it work in Buffalo?
Except Lamar Jackson threw for 440 yards on Monday night in one of the better Monday Night Football games I've seen.
Josh Allen doesn't have to.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't give up that many points.
No, that's very true.
They're not sitting behind the Colts.
And one thing to notice about this Bills team is they're doing this with Stephon Diggs having a down season.
Miserably down season.
It's fantasy-wise, it is a disappointment. It's not on the level of an Allen Robinson disappointment so far this season, but Stephon Diggs is not living up to the wide receiver one that stock that everyone drafted him into. And the big part of that is two players emerging in Buffalo. One player is a familiar face in Emanuel Sanders. He's having a little revival here in Buffalo. He's catching touchdowns. He caught 3 passes last week. 2 of them were in the end zone. Stephon Diggs should have had a touchdown if he decided to not try to showboat and paid attention to where the defender was, because he would have outran the defender if he actually caught the ball and ran instead of caught the ball and wanted to celebrate before getting in the end zone. And then you also got Dawson Knox, who
did the same thing. 2 catches in the end zone and 3 touches overall.
Yep.
3 targets, 2 touchdowns. 100-plus yards.
Very efficient.
One day.
Very efficient for Dawson Knox.
Very inefficient of the biggest problem in Kansas City, their defense.
Yes.
They're trash.
Right.
Trash.
Fire up any player on the offensive side of the ball against Kansas City. Who do they got this week again? Washington.
The football team.
Terry McLaurin, starting. Taylor Heinecke, you'll see later, starting.
Ricky Seals-Jones.
You'll see later, starting.
Multiple times.
Antonio Gibson, Starting. I didn't start Antonio Gibson last week. To be fair, he had 20 carries for 60 yards. That's a pooper. Except he got in the end zone twice, which makes it not a pooper.
Got handed the ball at the 2-yard line twice, which really sucked for me starting my quarterback, which still won. But having Taylor Heinecke give up 2 really close rushing touchdowns kind of sucks.
I decided to start Alex Collins over Antonio Gibson for the upside of Alex Collins having running room when Antonio Gibson wasn't going to against New Orleans because New Orleans is a very good run defense. They held Antonio Gibson to 3 yards per carry. Luckily, those, like you said, those 2 touchdown runs were like under 3 yards.
Inside the 3.
Yeah, so they worked.
Hit his average.
Yeah, so we may be good at fantasy football, but as again, you'll see later when we go over last week's daily fantasy, we're not necessarily gods at this. We make mistakes.
Fantasy football.
Yeah, no one's perfect in fantasy football. So like even like when you have a god squad like I do in one of our leagues, you lose games every once in a while, like once in every 2 years. So
I don't know what that's like. I haven't lost yet.
This season.
This is the only season that counts.
All right. Okay, I'll see you in the playoffs, Pat. Unless something drastic happens, I will see you.
Oh God, terrible.
Could you imagine if I missed the playoffs?
What a
choke!
Playoffs if you missed it.
God, I think that puts like Sargenti's middle of the road team in the playoffs.
Sargenti's 4-1.
Is he?
I play him for first place this week.
Oh well, no. If you lose, I get first place, but it's okay.
No,
I'm the second highest scoring team. Well, no. So sorry.
I could lose to him and still be ahead of you.
Right. Could. You will be. If you win, you will be regardless.
Yeah.
Right. But
that's the plan.
All right, so we'll jump into our podcast league. We'll talk about that for a little bit. Last week's episode was focused on trades, and trades.
Trade.
You know, there have been a couple more, I will say. There's been 3 or 4 more since our last episode.
Huge.
There was one decent-sized one, I would say. There were a couple big names thrown around in it. I traded with my brother. I gave up Chris Godwin, Curtis Samuel, Alex Collins, and a 2023.
You said you gave up Chris Godwin and just stopped there. Right?
Yeah, and a 2023 third, and I got back Joe Mixon, Elijah Moore, and a 2023 6th round pick. Something like
just
that.
Said
the main
Gibson
thing.
The main thing
that
was the trade.
It was Godwin for Mixon. We talked about how I was looking for a running back, and I got another running back, and now I have 3 on my team that I consider to be RB1s. Gibson more towards RB2 right now because the lack of passing work that he gets on that team for still no reason. It makes sense to me. He's better than J.D. McKissick, but it's besides the point. Because it gives me CMC, Mixon, and Gibson. CMC's an RB1. CMC is the RB1 when he's playing. Joe Mixon gets the work when he's fully healthy, which he got a good amount of carries last week for being a split time field with Samaje Perine, so I imagine Mixon's going to be out there fully being the guy, and Samaje Perine tested positive for COVID, so there's a possibility he misses Sunday anyway, which means less carries going to someone besides Joe Mixon. Maybe Chris Evans, but
it's the only one.
Right.
The only one left.
Right. So yeah, I'm okay with it. I was deep at receiver after trading for Debo, so made Godwin expendable. And there's a lot of mouths to feed in Tampa. So I didn't think the Godwin thing was going to keep up necessarily. And then today I made a trade with Sean. Sean's been appearing, made a couple appearances now in the league, setting lineups.
It helps when you remind him that he's in a league on Sleeper.
Oh, he forgot.
Yes. I asked him if he updated his app to make it work, and he said, yeah, ESPN's working fine. I keep changing my team. And I said, what about the Sleeper League? And he said, oh, yeah. So, here we are. Moving on up. Roster set.
Right. Anyway, I traded him Marquez Valdez-Scantling, a 4th-round pick next year for Noah Fant, and a 7th-round pick. And then I dropped Ricky Seals-Jones, much to the chagrin of someone else who put it in a waiver claim form. I'm assuming he put in another waiver claim form after I dropped him. No?
There is a reason for that. My waiver claim was originally going to be to drop Ertz.
Oh, but Goddard got COVID. So he's not playing Thursday.
Now he's not playing, so now Ertz is in the starting lineup.
Right. So
Ricky Seals-Jones gets targets, but the only tight end in Philly is a big role against a suspect Tampa Bay defense.
With Levante David being out.
Yes. So
yeah, that's a big piece missing.
Ricky Seals-Jones goes back to free agency.
Right. So while we're talking about Thursday Night Football, there's a thing to talk about. Last weekend, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers destroyed the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins kind of made it closer towards the end of the game, but Tom Brady, for the first time in his career, at 44 years old, threw for over 400 passing yards and 5 touchdowns in a game. That was the first time in his career he did that. He is, it pains me to say, the greatest quarterback to ever play the game, but
has that ever been a debate, really?
Oh, I said once he left the Patriots and stopped playing the Jets twice a year, I admit it.
If he kept winning.
Yeah, that's true, too.
Then he won a Super Bowl immediately.
So the one lone bright spot for the Miami Dolphins last week was Myles Gaskin. 10 catches, 76 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the air. Not a lot of running room against Tampa. As per usual, that's the thing. Running backs are not going to get the carries and the yards per carry against Tampa. So that leaves a question mark here for this week. Tampa's going against Philly. Going against Jalen Hurts, who's been a top 5 fantasy quarterback this year. I expect that to stay the same because Tampa's secondary is hurt. And Richard Sherman is still learning that defense. He's still going to have a hard time. He's not going to be able to keep up with the Devonta Smith this weekend, tomorrow night or tonight.
So before you ask your question, did you already check my fantasy lineup in your league?
Yes, and I saw that you have Kenneth Gainwell starting over Miles Sanders. I have a similar predicament in one of my leagues where currently I have both of them in my starting lineup because I think they're both going to get receptions because last week Miles Sanders got 5 targets and 5 catches against Carolina, albeit that it led to 6 yards total between those 5 catches. But the targets were a good sign that Hurts is looking to actually dump the ball to him when he has the opportunity to. And now Levante David's not going to be playing. That's one of their better cover guys. It's one of their better linebackers. I think that it run 2 RB sets have Gainwell and Sanders both out there. I think throw Ertz in there, Devonta Smith and Jalen Reagor, and I think they'll be okay. I don't think they're going to beat Tampa, but I think I'm leaning towards Miles Sanders.
I'm all over Gainwell this week.
And I understand the reason why Tampa should go up and should go up early. And then they'll give Gainwell more of the garbage time role and the receptions and shit like that.
Just the way it's been working. He's better out of the backfield when it comes to catching than Sanders is. They finally used Sanders in that regard last week, but every previous week it's been the Kenny Gainwell show. And they gave the ball to Sanders out of the backfield through the air last week, and it failed miserably.
Right.
I don't expect them to do experiment number 2 against Tampa Bay. There's no time to experiment against Tampa Bay.
I agree. Last year, Miles Sanders was not a great fantasy running back. He wasn't as bad as he is this year. But 2 games, or at least 1 game where Miles Sanders performed was against a run defense that you did not expect a running back to have a good game against. That was Pittsburgh. He bounced off that 80-yard touchdown run. It seems like Miles Sanders, for some reason, shows up against the good defenses. I have an explanation for he did against the Saints last year, too. I believe I benched him for both of those games in that league, and he could have helped me win. So I'm going with Sanders because he's the starter still. I still think he's going to get work out of the backfield. And right now I have Kenny Gainwell in my flex spot. That league, the waivers don't go through until Thursday morning. We record on Wednesday, so I don't have my waivers done yet, and it's also a fab. I put in a good amount of fab on Devonta Booker so that I can have a better flex option than that this week.
You saw how well backup running back replacement worked against the Rams last week, and you decided to spend a whole bunch of money on a backup running back going against the Rams again, huh? That makes sense, yeah. If you make a mistake once, obviously the best thing to do is make it twice.
Yeah, because, Devonta Booker looked good after Saquon got hurt.
There's going to be plenty of other options for the Rams to have to cover also. I mean, there's
Kadarius Toney.
Is he not questionable anymore?
No, he's gonna play. I don't
Okay.
think they have a choice.
Well, there's Kenny got no, he's out. There's still no.
Well, Shepard might play.
Slayton's got a better chance than Shepard, I think. Is Shepard coming back this week? Shepard was.
There's also no Daniel Jones, so they're gonna try to run the football.
I don't
Give
know
me the
about that.
touches.
Danny Jones progressing through concussion protocol as of this morning.
Okay, I don't. But still, I think Devontae Booker. He's the number one running back on the waiver wire, unless Daryl Williams is still out there. So if he's not,
I just don't know if I'm spending a lot of money.
well,
this
it's
early
not
in the
okay.
season on that.
But I have. You started the year with 100. I'm down to 75 right now.
It's percentage wise. So out of your 100, how much are you willing to spend on that?
Well, no, I don't
one
have. I'm
move
down to
in week
7.
6?
I'm down to 75 now.
So what are you looking at? A third of your money?
Yeah,
That's significant in week 6.
yeah, it's significant. But I'm also 0-5, Pat. If I don't win this week, it's time to give up.
Might be time to give up anyway.
Not with the team I have. Fourth highest scoring team in the league. I have the most points scored against me by a 45-point margin in that league. So it's not. I don't think it's time necessarily for that team to give up. It's still a long season. It's also a 10-team league, which means it's only 4 teams make the playoffs, only 2 playoff weeks. So I do have that extra week.
It's a long week, yeah.
I have an extra week to get into the playoffs. So I'm perfectly fine. I made a big trade in that league today too, where I acquired Aaron Jones so that when Saquon comes back and is healthy, I'll have Saquon Barkley and Aaron Jones as my running backs in that league. So I think I'll be okay. I just need to get through this week. But yes, we'll go on to our league now. And Pat, would you mind pulling up our little chart here that you spent so much time on?
I did. It's true.
And as you guys at home should know, this looks familiar because it's something that we've been going over every week. Pat texted me yesterday and asked for the team's biggest strengths going into this week's matchups. Pat's still going over our needs. Well, I'm going to start with my team here because I want to be selfish. Your biggest need was my team's biggest strength a couple weeks ago. Was the wide receiver consistency. They haven't been the same wide receivers they were a couple weeks ago. CeeDee Lamb, he had a good game last weekend, but before that he had 2 duds. Chris Godwin has been serviceable, and so is Cooper Kupp, but they haven't been the dominant guys. And then I traded for Deebo Samuel, who still played well last week. He 3 for 58. He had a rushing touchdown.
But you got a bye week this week for him.
Exactly. Luckily, I have Emanuel Sanders on the bench, and I think they play Monday night against Tennessee. That's a nice matchup for him, so he's in the lineup. There's no reason to not start Emanuel Sanders right now until he's proven wrong. Plus, I'm going against Ricky, whose bench. Ricky's bench is literally projected for 0 points because he has nobody else to put in his lineup. He has to start Mark Ingram in one of his running back spots this week.
He still has a tight end who is not playing
in his lineup with Rob
in his
Gronkowski
lineup because Rob Gronkowski is not playing Thursday night, and he can replace him on his bench with
Ricky Seals-Jones, who I just dropped.
Yes, but then he'd have to drop
somebody. Right. So I'm
Mark Ingram.
I'm also well, no, you can't. Then he won't have a running back.
Backs.
Yeah, this is a tricky situation here, Ricky.
He also has someone in his lineup who may not play. Again, on top of that,
Kenny Golladay.
No, Sammy Watkins. Galladay's on the bench, but Watkins is not practicing still and got knocked out of last game.
Ricky.
So he's in for it. Tanking be damned. I don't think I can force a lineup on him. I don't think anyone can force a lineup on him. He does not have the ability for that.
Right, and I don't necessarily think...
It may be time to make some moves.
I don't necessarily think that he's tanking either. I think he just hit a... Look at the names on the screen that are hurt. 2 of those guys he got in a trade. Like, it's just...
There's still more people that are hurt. Those are the ones who got hurt last week or continue to be hurt that were supposed to play Julio Jones, who's probably out again.
Right. And
was he practicing yet?
Yes, he practiced
yes,
today.
he was back to practice.
Yeah, I think it was a limited, but it was still a practice.
Anything counts when you have no one to play.
Right. Did you update the team ages or no?
No, they're still the same.
Okay.
But they move around with the team, so it's not like they get lost in the shuffle.
No, I know.
There have been a lot of trades, but...
Right.
There's a lot of math that goes into that I don't feel like doing all that often.
Right.
I was
And
busy at work. That's different.
I know that's weird for you.
Busy at work. Stupid work.
And because I'm playing against Ricky, I am opting out of starting 2 quarterbacks because I do not like Derek Carr this week. He's got a terrible matchup. I do not want to play Derek Carr this week. Zach Wilson's on a bye week. I'd rather start Zach Wilson on a bye week, if I'm being honest, than Derek Carr right now with his matchup. So I'm starting Marvin Jones after 2 bad weeks in a row. I'm ready for a good week from Marvin Jones. Yay.
I'm starting Derek Carr.
I don't remember who Raiders
starting
are playing.
Tyler Higbee, if we're being honest with each other.
Oh, I do have Tyler Higbee on my bench. I forgot all about him because I traded for Noah Fant. That's right. So yeah, I could start Tyler Higbee. Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome.
So my biggest strength for this week, I looked at it. My 3 running backs, CMC, if he plays, great matchup. If he doesn't play, Chuba Hubbard, great matchup. Chuba Hubbard finally got the work last week because Sam Darnold looked like Sam Darnold. So I like Chuba Hubbard this week. I like CMC this week. Antonio Gibson, we just talked about it. Going up against Kansas City, their defense is not good at anything right now. And then you got Joe Mixon, and the Bengals are going up against
Detroit?
The Lions.
Detroit.
Start everyone against the Lions type of deal. So I like all those matchups. Joe Mixon has a questionable tag on him right now. Like I said, I think that's just limiting his workload during the week. He'll be fine. He played on Sunday.
If they can't have P. Ryan, they have to limit him during the week. They don't need that ankle getting any worse.
Right. So I'm not looking too much into a limited practice for Joe Mixon, just like I'm not looking at a limited practice for Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson got like 23 touches last week with a hairline fracture on his shin, or a stress fracture on his shin. I think he's okay.
I think he's hurt. I just think he's going to play.
Yeah, no, okay.
I think he's okay.
He's going to play
That's
this week.
rude of you.
Right. So then Pat has on this week's kill list. The injury list is CMC. We wait. Matt Rule came out today and said that it's going to be a game time decision. Considering the fact that he was a game day decision last week, I kind of find it hard to believe that he's not going to be playing this week. I think Matt Rule's playing a little coy with us here. But like I said, I have Chuba, so it's not a big deal if CMC doesn't go. It's just Chuba plays. He still doesn't get as many points as CMC does, but he still gets points. And he'll get more points than throwing in like Giovanni Bernard, who's on my bench.
Who you won't be able to throw in because he's playing Thursday night.
My man. You're right. Right now we'll just go in order. Or unless we want to talk about Pat's team, since I was selfish, we can be selfish and talk about Pat's team.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay.
They're still winning. 2 wins in a row.
Wow,
Still
Pat,
the first team
2 and 3. Wow. And
Woohoo!
the lowest scoring team in the league with a guy who didn't set his lineup didn't realize he was in a league on sleeper for the first 4 weeks.
Killing it.
And I would just like to point out that Pat is not tanking on purpose either. And he's still the lowest scoring team doing that. That takes skill, my friend.
That's what happens when A.J. Brown is hurt and doesn't get any touches and only plays 40% of the snaps. And Kamara, Jameis Winston can't find him for 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's.
If it wasn't for Kareem Hunt, my team would be 0-5. Let's just be honest with each other here.
Facts. So your biggest strength this week is the fact that you're going against Sean. So that's good for you.
Put up numbers last week.
He did. Thanks to Myles Gaskin, which we talked about before.
Thanks to having a full lineup.
That too. Pat, your biggest need, the ball. Care to elaborate here for folks at home?
Let's play a game here. Chenault last week, 1 touch, 68 yards. Imagine the explosiveness. If only you had thrown the ball to him more often.
Instead of
Trevor,
Jamal Agnew and Tavon
God
Austin.
knows who. Yeah.
Wow.
What a legendary receiving staff.
Yeah, you should know all about Tavon Austin.
Yeah. Well, he has good days. He has bad days. Keenan Allen put up 4 catches, but they were 4 very useless catches, as Mike Williams dominated the entire game.
Yeah.
Which is what happens when no one covers anyone past 20 yards. Mike Williams is going to dominate the entire game. I don't know what happened, but Mike Williams was wide open the whole game. So, no-brainer on throwing it to him.
This is the Mike Williams that the Chargers drafted in the first round. What was it, 5 years ago?
Yeah, God forbid someone cover him.
Yeah,
What a
like
dumb decision that would be, Browns.
it's so insane to think about how this has just been lying below the surface of Mike Williams that has been covered by injury after injury
He's
after
healthy.
injury. He's finally healthy and he's playing with that talent that he got drafted at. It's just Mike Williams is the by far steal of the draft this year in any league. I don't care what league it is. This is steal of the draft.
Yep.
So
He's last year's Calvin Ridley.
Yep.
Well, he's this year's Calvin Ridley, I should say. Last year, Calvin Ridley was Calvin Ridley.
I got what you meant. I was picking up what you were putting down.
That's fair. A.J. Brown, 3 catches. Only played 60% of the snaps. As we talked about, he was recovering from his hamstring injury.
I expect more out of him
getting
this
over
week.
that, and as a reward for getting over your hamstring injury, you now get to face the best defense in the NFL. Congratulations.
Yeah, Tre'Davious White's not a terrible cornerback.
Yeah.
So
He didn't just totally shut down Tyreek. Anywho, Darren Waller looked invisible last week. That was fun. He received a lot of targets, but they went sailing over his head, except for the one that he dropped when he was wide open, standing there with absolutely no one covering him and 10 yards of free space in front of him for a touchdown. I hate you, Darren Waller.
to be fair, John Gruden had a lot on his mind on Sunday, Pat.
Yeah, racism and homosexuality. Fantastic stuff. And then Tyler Boyd, who got 4 catches, and all 4 of them came in the fourth quarter when they were struggling to get anywhere, and they weren't very meaningful either.
That game was nuts.
He got them. It was nuts.
No one could kick a
Thank God
freaking
I
field
didn't
goal.
start
Oh
their
my
kicker
God.
in
That was
another league.
brutal to watch.
Yes, it was. And that's what happens when you play for field goals. Maybe someone on someone's team will go and play for a touchdown next week.
Yeah. You know, it's
Perhaps a Tyler Boyd.
the highs and the lows for kickers this year. Justin Tucker walk-off, NFL record-long field goal, and then you have that game.
Well, if you think about it, in the same day, right before that, I don't remember who went for the record-long field goal, and it got returned for a touchdown by Agnew.
Right.
So that was went for the record long, missed it, returned for a touchdown. Justin Tucker steps up and goes, "Oh, we're just doing record long kicks today. No problem. Say less."
Was that Matt Prater on the Cardinals?
It may have been.
I think it was against the
Yeah.
Cardinals, so I
Yeah.
think it was Matt Prater that tried
Yep.
that, who has probably the strongest legs in football.
Oh yeah,
But Justin Tucker was playing inside. He had an advantage.
exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It's exciting. Yeah, my running backs had more catches than my wide receivers and tight ends combined. So throw them the ball. They're not bad.
Yeah.
They're projected every single week for around 15 to 17 points, and they're putting up 7, which is not production.
It's not?
Not when, well, it is when you play the 10th easiest, the second easiest people in the league with the worst scoring team. Then the other team has all their players get hurt. I played Ricky last week. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's.
I was like, oh no, I'm going to lose. Kenny Galladay, 0 points. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 2 points, knocked out. Sammy Watkins, 2 points, knocked out.
Pat, I'll
Get
just
lucky.
give you credit right here, man. If we were playing like a golf version of fantasy football, you'd be doing great.
Hey, I'd still be probably right where I am.
You know. Okay, and this week's hit kill list for you. You're pretty healthy, your team, now that A.J. Brown's back in action. I expect a bigger workload from him. He's going in a worse matchup, but I think he's going to be on the field for probably 80% of the snaps. And it'd be huge if Julio Jones came back this week for A.J. Brown's production, because I think even if Julio is out there as a decoy, he's still out there as a decoy.
That's better than having Josh Reynolds as your other wide receiver.
Exactly.
Covering him.
So, yeah, I mean, we'll see how this week turns out. Hopefully it
And
works
then
out for you.
hopefully next week, Michael Thomas comes back.
Hopefully.
Not really reading too much into that one. Probably 2 or 3 more weeks before he actually steps back on the field. But
I thought he has to mix 6 weeks.
he's out PUP list for 6 weeks, but that doesn't. He's IR, so they have 21 days to activate him after they designate him for return. Or is it? I think it's still 21 days.
Right.
You get the same rules.
But they can't designate him to return until after 6 weeks. We're in week 5, so he would need to miss next
Week
week
6.
also.
It's bye week.
Is this week?
Saints bye week.
Is this
He
week?
can return in week 6.
I thought he has to return after week 6.
No, he can return him. He's projected to get. Well, this is week 6. What are you doing to me here? This is week 6. That's why everyone's 2-3 and 4-1. That equals 5. And then after this week, the numbers will equal 6.
I'm tired.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Right. So who knows if Michael Thomas will be coming back next week? We have literally no idea if he's going to be playing next week or not. But hopefully he does. That would significantly help your team because you did make a trade to get Michael Thomas since our last episode. We did not talk about that one.
That was after the episode was over. We sat here for 45 minutes and hashed out a trade, which was very interesting after Robert Woods went off.
Right, Robert Woods. What was the trade? Robert Woods
and Renfro for Michael Thomas and Laviska Shenault.
Renfro got traded again.
Poor Renfro.
He just keeps getting moved around in this league, man. It's unbelievable. He's now on his 4th different team since.
It's because Gruden sent us an email about him, so now everyone's gonna trade him.
Right. Yeah. So I traded away Robert Woods in one league after that game. I got a 2nd-round pick for the guy. I felt like I could have probably got more, but I didn't want to push it, so I got a 2nd-round pick for him. Because that league, I'm stacked at receiver and I'm deep in at receiver, so I was good with it. All right. Nothing else in this league is really different than what we've been talking about. Ricky's team hurt up the wazoo. That's why their biggest need is buying stock in a hospital hospital supply company. Ricky, the one thing looking good for Ricky right now is, hey, there's always next week is what I was thinking, and he looks fabulous, as Pat put. Then you got McCarron's team. He has Russell Wilson and Jalen Hurts. Those were the only 2 quarterbacks he had rostered. He went and picked up Jared Goff this morning because our waiver wire had Geno Smith, Jared Goff, Davis Mills. Those are your 3 options at starting.
Geno Smith got picked up.
Yep. So Jared Goff or Davis Mills. Davis Mills looked really good last week against the Patriots defense that usually shuts down rookie quarterbacks. However, I don't know if you can consistently hope that Davis
really Mills. Bad for all the weeks before that. So I get leaving him there.
Right. So Jared Goff's the safe option. What I told Mike he should do is he should go talk to someone like my brother who has 4 quarterbacks on his roster, or someone like Alex who has Kirk Cousins up on the trading block. He could also come talk to me about Derek Carr if he really wanted to. But then that would leave me with just 2 quarterbacks, and I'm a little hesitant about doing that. But that's what this screen is that Pat has up now.
Options are options if you find the right deal.
Exactly. I wouldn't overpay for a Matt Ryan. For the players that are on the trading block, I'd prioritize them Cousins, Ryan, Carr. I think.
I just went in order from left to right as I was typing.
Right, no, I'm not saying. Well, I'm just saying if I'm prioritizing who I want to go after on this list, I'm going after Kirk Cousins first because I think he has the better weapons in Minnesota once Dalvin Cook comes back. Matt Ryan, better weapons. Derek Carr has Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow.
We're going to find out how a new coach does a new offense.
That too. It's kind of a waiting game. I'm kind of hoping Derek Carr goes off so I can get maybe a better price on him.
I'm kind of hoping they just still keep throwing the ball to Darren Waller a lot.
It seemed to work. I'm not so sure. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not a coach or a scout, but it seemed to work.
Give it a go.
So on this graphic we have up here is the big injuries for the team, what their potential replacements could be, what's out there on the trading block to do, and what you could go ahead and offer. So yeah, we're basing this off of our league, but I bet you some of the people out there, you have similar issues because these are big names that are hurt right now. Russell Wilson, Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Juju. Like, these are guys that you drafted pretty highly, and you got to try to figure out a replacement for them.
The good news for most people is that they don't play Superflex League.
Right, we do.
So the fact that those are the only 3 quarterbacks available is because you have to imagine everyone wants to keep 2 quarterbacks. Everyone's already got 2 quarterbacks. Most people have 3, so your waiver wire is barren.
Mm-hmm.
Barren. Geno Smith was the find of the waiver wire. So you're probably not going to see that in most leagues. Most dynasty leagues, you're probably going to have 2 quarterbacks because you don't want to take any chances. But people will be more willing to move their second quarterback The thing to watch out for is we're also coming into bye weeks.
One of my
You're going to see a lot of moving around on the waiver wire, depending on who's coming out and who's going in. I don't know any dynasty league doesn't have an IR spot. So hopefully you don't have all of these problems like Ricky does and you have a spot to stash Russell Wilson. I assume if you have Russell Wilson, you have a pretty decent team. Don't let them rot in hell because you don't have a quarterback.
right.
Depends what you have. But you're never going to replace Russell Wilson for his production in fantasy with a decent trade. But I'm sure you can find Sam Darnold just had a down week. But he's got the rushing ability. So he always has that bounce back ability. Plus, rushing touchdowns are worth more. So there are mid-range options that you can go look for. And sometimes a heavy PPR person, Jamison Crowder, or a young running back that's not playing just yet, Trey Sermon, look for teams that are not Tim Murray 0-5, but regular person 0-5, that are probably okay with adding a running back that's a rookie who's got potential, and they probably have 2 quarterbacks. See what they got.
Right.
Take a look. Don't sit there and go to the waiver wire and add Geno Smith and hope that it lasts you all year long.
Right.
Because 1 week, okay, fine, but you have a couple of quarterbacks that had down weeks. And if you can get one of them, pick the right time.
The guy that just walked behind me on the screen here is the guy we're actually talking about, so that was kind of good timing there by him. So, but yeah, like I lost my train of thought when he walked downstairs. I don't
Quarterbacks?
Yeah, quarterbacks. One thing I will stress is check to see who was dropped in waiver wire pickups. Because there could be someone that got dropped because they're on a bye week that you can scoop up and help you out in a future bye week. I like to look to my future bye weeks when the bye weeks first hit. Like, this is the first week of bye weeks. I'm looking at my bye weeks for next week, seeing who's on the waiver wire now that I can get to replace for next week before I have to compete with everyone else for them.
That's what I did in my league. I have Josh Allen going out in 2 weeks because the Bills are on a bye. And as much as he hasn't been the greatest of all time, Carson Wentz was still sitting there.
Put up 400 yards on Monday.
He put up the yards. He showed that he has the ability to throw the ball, and he looks healthier. So made that move early on. He's obviously not starting this week. Josh Allen still exists, so Josh Allen will be starting. But you grab your guy when you can. I had no other quarterbacks in that league. So that is Patrick Mahomes got traded by me in that league. That was fun. You don't get a lot of chances to trade Patrick Mahomes. Had to go pick someone up.
And I'm glad you did trade Patrick Mahomes in that league because that
gave you Kyler Murray. Yes, we know.
So
we know.
A dab.
Terrible.
But
terrible. Terrible.
The good thing in this league right now, because a lot of the trades went through and happened already, a lot of people that have the injury issues, they have pretty much replacements for them on their team already. Like, one of the perfect ones is Merrill. Juju got hurt. Who's his replacement? Chase Claypool, who is his literal replacement on the Steelers. CMC's hurt. Chuba Hubbard's his literal replacement for me on my team. With the O'Connors, Dallas Goedert's on COVID-19. He's not going to play. They have Hunter Henry.
Now, if you look at, since you mentioned it, they were the ones I was going to mention. The O'Connors just made a move with Merrill in a trade, which is one that we didn't talk about. Daryl Henderson went over to Merrill, which was nice, added into Merrill's running back problem. But what he got back was the handcuff for every single running back he had.
Yep. Which
in a league like this, where his 2 running backs were Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. Oh, I think that was it. Grabbing back Jamal Williams and Madison, which Madison's just been... I don't understand how he's still on that team as a backup.
Like, how is no one traded for him?
I don't get how no one's gone out to get him. It doesn't make any sense. Every time he steps into Dalvin Cook's spot, he puts up 30 points.
Right, and I understand why Minnesota doesn't want him to leave, obviously for that reason, but how has some team not gone out there and offered a 4th-round pick for this kid?
Even higher. They even put a 3rd-round pick on the board. There's got to be something that can make Minnesota get rid of Madison.
You know what team he'd be absolutely dangerous on? It would be a team like Tampa. He's a young running back with a low salary to him. He's better than Leonard Fournette. He's better than Ronald Jones. Throw him out there. You don't have to have a need for a Giovanni Bernard either, because he'll be your 3-down back.
Looking at you, Baltimore.
Baltimore, exactly. Go out and trade for him. San Francisco, you could go out and trade for him.
How many running backs can they have, though? Come on now.
Right, but how many of them are actually healthy, like all the time? Oh, by the way, waiver wire, look out for Jeff Wilson Jr. Just throwing it out there. He shouldn't be on the waiver. He shouldn't be on the waiver wire, but if he is,
he'll be on the waiver wire in a lot of leagues.
Not in most dynasty. In dynasty leagues, he's probably a stash on the IR because dynasty leagues have IRs, so I would have drafted him and stashed him, type of thing.
There's too much on that team, and I get it. There, Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, that teams. There was Mostert when the season started, so there's a good chance he's still out there.
Right.
And none of the other running backs have really separated themselves yet this year, and every time they do, they get hurt anyway. So
Jeff Wilson Jr. won leagues last year when he came back. When Raheem Mostert got hurt last year, and Jeff Wilson Jr. was the guy. He won leagues for people last year. So Shanahan likes him. Grab him if he's out there. There's not a lot of other big injuries that, like, in their replacements. McCarron. With Russell Wilson, he replaced him with Jared Goff because he didn't really have a choice. We already talked about that. Elijah Mitchell's on a bye week. He can't really replace Saquon Barkley with that. So,
not this week.
No. So if I'm sitting in McCarron's spot, I'm offering up Trey Sermon for Kirk Cousins. Alex is looking at the future. Mike is still in win now mode. Kirk Cousins is a serviceable quarterback. Trey Sermon doesn't have a spot in his starting lineup, so that's what I would be doing, personally.
That's why they're both on the board.
Yep.
There was no mistake about that.
Yep. Sargenti should definitely be looking to move someone like Rondale Moore because of our keeping format. I don't think he's going to keep Rondale Moore over anybody on his starting lineup. So look to move him to get depth or get a running back, even if it's just like a middle tier running back. Just get that depth piece for you because he's good at wide receiver.
Patterson's a sell high candidate. If you can get a consistent RB2 and move Patterson out,
right,
you got to be thinking about it at least. I know he's putting up numbers. He's got the receptions. Is it sustainable throughout the entire year? Maybe. Does he have value to stay on the team at the end of the year? Maybe.
It all depends.
It all depends on what they do with him. So it's a sell high for me. It's not so much that he should move him. It really depends on what's coming back. As you can see, he doesn't have any big injuries. He just doesn't have, in my opinion, a consistent RB2.
Right.
And that's what you got to be. Solidify the positions you can. Cardone Patterson is the RB2 right now. He might be the RB1 right now. He's, what, 4th in fantasy points this year?
I believe so.
So he's way up there. He's plowing through. Touchdowns in every game, 4 to 5 catches in every game. He's out there. So for me, it's a sell high moment. He might hold it the entire year, and then you don't want to sell him. He also has wide receiver eligibility, so he gives you a lot of flexibility in your lineup.
Yeah, Patterson is RB3 right now in our league. That's number 18 overall.
And that's a waiver wire ad.
Yep.
It's not a draft. He was one of the top pickups. I think it was week 3. Everyone was chasing after him.
Yep.
And that's the way he went. So it was a great ad. It's a great choice. And so far, it's paid dividends. And I think you get a pretty penny for him. The only problem is Sargenti's sitting with the most points in the league in competition to win. It's really hard to sell high on someone who's getting you to where you are.
Right. Someone that I'd be looking to potentially move if I'm him. to one of the teams that's at the bottom of the list here would be someone like George Kittle. He's got Dalton Schultz too, who has been outperforming George Kittle. Even when Kittle was healthy, Dalton Schultz was putting up more points than him. You dangle George Kittle out there in a deal, see what you can get back for him, because Alex has Darren Waller, Sean has Mike Gesicki, and what
I have Darren Waller.
You have Darren Waller. I knew one of you two had Darren Waller. I think Alex has Dawson Knox is his tight end. And then you have Merrill, who I don't remember who is. I think it's Robert Tonyan.
He got no one.
Yeah, so that'd be like, yeah. So if I'm Merrill and I'm Sargenti, talk to each other here, guys. Try to maybe work something out where George Kittle goes to Merrill and a running back goes back to Sargenti. Do something here where you guys can try to work something out. Because Merrill's team has started to decline since he got off to a hot start.
He's getting the wrong matchups. And that's one of the reasons he's in red here. Mm-hmm. He's got the 5th most points scored in the league.
Right. So
he's sitting at 9th. He doesn't belong in 9th.
No, but he was also at
points scored.
Right, he was also up there at like 1st or 2nd in points scored in the first couple of weeks. So his team has kind of, just like mine, have gone down drastically in points scored. And
it's been bad days from good people.
Yep.
The week he lost to me, Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams didn't show up.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to chalk that one away. That you don't do anything with that. You throw that week away. That's
right.
all
and
you
then
can do with a situation like that. And then last week he went down. Let's take a look here at the app that's frozen because iPhone sucks. Let me take a look here. This matchup here. Totally not Sleeper's fault. Totally the iPhone's fault. Where are you? He ran into none other than Jonathan Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And Derrick Henry,
yep.
who put up 66 points, which is a lot of points. He did start Madison, put up 27. He lost by 4 to the team in first place. And that's a subject of bad matchup.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that is. He put up 152 points. He's losing to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams. 5 teams.
Yeah, right in the middle. So
right in the middle of the road, 152. But there was a matchup, mine, of a 115 versus a 105. So there's your lucky matchup. And now, in comparison, we had Ricky on 2 weeks ago. Those are the matchups he was winning.
Mm-hmm.
That was his thing. Those were the matchups he was getting. He was getting those 115, 105. He wasn't putting up a lot of points, but neither was his opponent. And then this week he had 3 players get hurt in the middle of the week.
Right.
The middle of their games.
So even if you are in Merrill's position here where you are putting up points, you're just not getting the lucky bounce. You do trade for someone like a George Kittle when he comes back from IR who could hopefully get you over that hump.
That's the spot he's missing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If you're missing one spot, and he's losing narrow matchups. So what wins narrow matchups? Your tight end putting up a consistent 12 to 15 points instead of 1 week putting up 20 and 1 week putting up 2.
Mm-hmm.
And when Kittle's healthy, he's going to be consistent.
So
he may not be consistently tight end 1 like people drafted him as. Okay, Travis Kelce was drafted as that. Might not be in the top 3 tight end wise. Just because that team has so many question marks, and you don't really know how Trey Lance and running and tight ends are going to get together, which is an interesting thing to look at, and it's always something that factors in. If you look at Gesicki, he is amazing with everyone except Tua,
which
doesn't know what a tight end is.
Which should be a sign here for the coach like Brian Flores saying, "Hey, get him the ball, dude."
Yeah, you got to sit there with Tua and just go, "Hey, dude, that guy." Just throw it to him. He's going to catch it no matter where you throw it. So give him a go.
So if I was Merrill, I would have put in a waiver claim on Ricky Seals-Jones. If he's only going to be relevant for 3 weeks, that's still 3 weeks. That helps you get 9 points.
Dan Arnold.
Oh. Wow. Okay. Let's see. Who do you trust, Pat? Do you trust Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray or Urban Meyer and Trevor Lawrence right now?
Hey, I have never once trusted Trevor Lawrence, so that would be a dumb question for me to answer.
Exactly, my point. But if you can't go out and get George Kittle, go out and go to someone else who has multiple tight ends that is looking to move one. They're going to be cheaper options than George Kittle. They're not going to be as flashy as George Kittle, but, and I'm not saying me specifically, but someone who has a person on the block like a Tyler Higbee. So there's other people out there who have multiple tight ends that you could go out and get. Tyler Higbee is
They're all hurt.
That's true.
Looking at you, Ricky. Sorry.
Yeah, Ricky has
again.
Ricky's Thanos collecting injured tight ends.
3 of them are dead, and 1 of them's on a bye week.
Right. So, yeah, just got to go out and make you move here, because I know he's going to be watching this podcast. Thanks, Merrill. We appreciate you.
Got to have 1 view.
Right. We have an average of like 10 viewers, and I know for a fact that Merrill and my brother are 2 of them. So.
I think Sargenti's one of them.
Hi guys. Hi people watching. Hi people watching. Hi Mike watching behind me. So I think we can move on to DFS unless you got anything you want to throw in. Mike, you want to throw in anything?
The towel.
My team's the best.
Pat said the towel. And
how are the Rangers doing?
Did the Rangers lose?
5-1.
They lost 5-1.
Well, they scored 1.
Yeah, they got a goal. That's good for them.
There's Chris Kreider.
Yeah, Chris Kreider got it. Nice.
All right.
I'll trade Barkley.
So there we go. That's good news.
Right. So yeah, go on.
No,
Let's
it's,
get.
Everything here is fairly standard. The reason there's not much on page 2 here is because everyone just made their trades. Everyone is. We went through it last week. We went through it this week. The trades are flying.
My brother literally only has 2 people on his team that he drafted, and that's Josh Allen and...
One of them will never play a snap. 2 of them will never play a snap this year.
Right. Oh, so 3. So Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, and...
Cam Akers.
Cam Akers. Those are the 3 that are still on his
Cam Akers
team.
and Deshaun Watson are not going to play this year.
Right.
So he has 2 players who will never take a snap.
And 1 person that he should never trade in a Superflex Dynasty League in Josh Allen. Unless you get a very significant offer for him.
And even then, probably shouldn't.
No. All right.
Are you ready?
Yeah, on the DFS.
Are you ready? After Tim's narrow victory last week, we went over to DFS for...
Oh, thank God you froze during this part. I'm so happy that it froze when Pat is about to boast.
No.
That made me so happy that it froze when you were about to start boasting.
I
You?
would never do that. I was about to make fun of Sutz, actually. That was what was coming. I was going to make fun of Sutz because his lineup sucked more than yours did. Unfortunately, we don't have his. We only have yours.
So I'm pouring it on camera because it looks like water.
Scored less than 94 points.
Look.
Which would have lost to me in fantasy, which is rough to do since you picked these players just this week, and I've been stuck with them for a year.
Like, if we're being completely honest here, I picked the right people, but just stuff happened. Okay?
Yeah, like they didn't play well because they suck.
Yo, Alexander, Pat and I both texted each other Sunday morning, like, I was substituting Alexander Madison in for blah, 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 because it was the move to do.
There was Alexander Madison was a cheap replacement. He was less money than Leonard Fournette, and I don't even remember who I had set up. Chase Edmonds, who was still questionable at the 4. Well, he was questionable at the 1 o'clock game. Down the hatch, baby.
Okay, so
Get the Devils
for the hockey season starting off. Here's my ice skate shot glass for the New Jersey Devils. Let's go Devils! Try not to suck this year.
Like Tim's fantasy week did.
Oh. Let me chase that real quick.
Nothing like whiskey to chase good vodka.
That was a bad idea.
Now water.
And hold on, let me
just circle.
Hold on, let me just finish it off with a nice
just keep going.
Naked Flock Heart cider.
All right, McCarron, get him something else.
He's
keep
upstairs.
passing stuff over to him. I'll just keep drinking. Everything you put in his hand, he's going to drink right now. Go crazy.
PS4 controller.
Okay, keep going.
Yeah, okay, we're done.
We had a couple of similar players.
A couple.
And none of them performed very well. That we started with, I should say.
We had
Madison,
4.
who we both subbed in, did fine. But we put up Kyler there, and Kyler looked like crap. Deebo Samuel had the rushing touchdown. Otherwise, his day would have been terrible. And Gesicki, I don't really know what happened to him.
Myles Gaskin happened.
Myles Gaskin happened. That's fair. Those close passes went to Gaskin, and Gaskin busted him out for touchdowns. There was no stopping him in the last game. But yeah, 186 for me, which was nice. I won actual money on DraftKings, $40 victory. That was nice. Doubled what I put in because it's the $20 one.
I didn't win monies.
Imagine that. Odd. I'm sure you were right on the cusp, though. I think if one player like, Kenny Galladay gets a touch, maybe you put
No.
up. No, still suck. Anywho,
Anyway, I am very confident in my DFS lineup this week.
let's move it on to this week.
Yeah.
Here we go. I will let you kick us off from the top since I won last week.
Taylor Heinecke. Who's he going against?
Kansas City.
Taylor Heinecke. How has he been as a fantasy quarterback this year?
Ups and downs.
Ups and downs.
Roller coaster ride. I'll be honest with you. Roller coaster ride.
It's been a roller coaster, but he has had those boom performances. He's only $5,800. It's cheap for a quarterback going against the 32nd ranked defense against the quarterback on DraftKings. I am going to take that. I believe it was 32nd. But 5,800, Taylor Heinecke. Lock him in.
It's a good steal. I went for Kyler Murray. And the reason for that is, well, did you see Justin Herbert last week? Did you see him?
I don't think the Browns
He
did
put
because I feel like they would have done something to stop
45
him.
points. 45 points. And everyone that was further than 20 yards down the field, Mike Williams every single time, was wide open.
Right.
If there's anyone who has the cannon to hit that, it's Kyler Murray. Once again, he's a very expensive quarterback, which will cost me in the wide receivers as we go down, as we'll see. But if you got the right quarterback, it can carry you. Yeah, go ahead.
Kyler Murray was a limited participant in practice today. I expect him to still play, but it is something to monitor because it is a right shoulder injury. If you watched any part of the game last week, at one point he was rotating the shoulder, he was rubbing the shoulder, doing something. So there's something going on there. I still like Kyler Murray this week, don't get me wrong. It's just keep an eye on the situation with Kyler Murray.
There's plenty of time before Sunday.
Right.
He doesn't play Thursday.
Nope.
And if anything goes wrong, he's the most expensive player on my team, so it can only get better.
Right.
So if he does get hurt, we still got options.
Right. Well, we both have Austin
Eckler. We
Eckler.
can skip. That's an easy one.
Yeah.
There's no real reason not to have Austin Eckler in this week. He has put up fantasy points consistently. And this week he gets, I don't even remember who, but I know they suck. Want to know how I know that? Because I'm going against Dawson Knox in fantasy in 3 different leagues, and I have prepared for the worst.
Which happens, you know.
He is going against
Yeah.
Baltimore. Yes, Jonathan Taylor did nothing against them. So look forward to Austin Eckler getting shut down because Jonathan Taylor wasn't wide open for screen passes for 36 yards every single time he touched the ball, including a 76-yard bust out from the – yeah, Austin Eckler's definitely not going to do that.
Right.
Crap.
So.
I was due for a loss in your league. I am 4-1 for no reason whatsoever.
Haha. Your second RB, Daryl Henderson for the Rams. Gets the ball. He's scored over 16 points per game this whole entire season, so he's got a safe floor. I understand it. It makes sense. Joe Mixon for me going up against I literally just looked at it and I can't even remember who Cincinnati's going against, but it's not a good run defense. Yeah, it's Detroit. Start them.
That's why we both have Bengals in our roster. Is because they're going against Detroit.
So
I have chosen Jamar Chase because he scored a touchdown in every game.
I chose Devontae Adams because I didn't last week.
Stopped. Yeah, that was rough. That was awesome. Last week he had like 10 catches for 150 yards at halftime, and I was like, "This is awesome."
Right, and I had
didn't get in the end zone.
I had him in your league, so it's good.
Yeah.
You know, and then we both have Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers has the safe floor for a wide receiver because DraftKings is PPR. He had 4 catches for 68 yards last week, which is 10.8 points. That's perfectly fine in DFS. He's going to get more.
And they're going against Dallas? No.
Yes.
Who are they going against? Dallas.
Yes. He might get some Trayvon Diggs coverage, and Trayvon Diggs is still an animal right now this year. He leads the league in interceptions. He's catching the ball better than his brother is in
Probably
Buffalo.
going to get a sixth.
Yeah, for being
If I had
honest.
to make a bet this week,
Especially if Mike Glennon's playing quarterback. Oh, no, sorry, that's the Giants.
man, traded him to the Patriots already, huh?
Well, no, Mac Jones
boy.
is. Yeah, Mac Jones is having a rough go of it. So are all the rookie quarterbacks this year, though, if we're being honest. I have Amon-Ra St. Brown, back-to-back weeks of, I think, 8 and 9 targets for him. Someone's got to catch the ball in Detroit. It's someone who we thought was going to start catching the ball in Detroit at the beginning of the season. And now he's starting to catch the ball because the defenses are targeting TJ Hawkinson. And
Quintez Cephas is out this week.
right, so Amon-Ra
He's
St.
laying
Brown,
on IR.
he was in the 4,000s. I think he was like 4,100 or something like that.
cheap.
He was cheap. Cheap is good because of a cheap play like him and a cheap play like my tight end and a cheap play like my fix. I can have the luxury of Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon, and Devontae Adams in my lineup. Pat, you went with Mr. Moore.
I went with the bomber.
That's a
I
boom or
watched
bust.
Mike Williams.
Yep.
Get open past 20 yards. And I can't afford DeAndre Hopkins. So I went with the cheap deep option. And there's two of them on the team, so it's hard to choose from. Christian Kirk and Rondell Moore. Moore's seen his fair share of targets over the last week. He was cheaper. And just seems to get open a little bit more. Christian Kirk takes 2 targets and turns them into 2 touchdowns, which is the dangerous part because it really all depends on who gets the ball in that situation. And it's one or the other. But for me, after the last couple of weeks that Rondell Moore's had versus the last 2 weeks that Christian Kirk's has, I'm going to stick with Moore. We both have Ricky Seals-Jones. We've already talked about that multiple times. Dawson Knox got wide open multiple times in the last game, and the entire nation got to watch it. And now you get Ricky Seals-Jones, who's very athletic.
And Kyler has shown this year that he likes the tight end position. This year, Max Williams was having a breakout year before he got hurt. He had a couple back-to-back weeks where he was getting 5 to 6 targets.
Did you forget that Ricky Seals-Jones got traded to Washington and now plays for Taylor Heinecke?
Dude, I'm all over the place today, aren't I?
Just making sure. Okay. We're talking about Kansas City and who they're playing, and we just discussed.
I
the
do
fact
apologize.
that,
This has been a rough.
Arizona's playing Cleveland.
This
So.
has been a rough one for me today. I'm tired.
We're here. It's okay. It's fine.
Right. But yeah, no. So
We're moving on.
either way, so Taylor Heineke loves the tight end. Same argument. The quarterback
I agree
loves
with
throwing
that
the ball
part.
to the tight end. It's the same
different
type of
role.
argument. I should have known because I chose Ricky Seals-Jones so that I'd have my stack in DFS that I love to have.
I took my stack with Rondell Moore.
Flex. It's Mark Andrews is self-explanatory. Did you not watch Monday Night Football? You should go watch the highlights of Monday Night Football, and you see Mark Andrews is literally everywhere.
2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row.
He finally got
All
touchdowns.
He's finally getting in the end zone. Got 2 of them last week. They're going up against, God, I just said them, the Chargers.
Mhm.
And the Chargers just let David Njoku run all over them.
Yeah.
And I mean all over them. He caught the ball at the 40-yard line and ran over one guy, and there was no one else there. And he went for a 60-yard touchdown.
Right.
So, Mark Andrews, he can do that. He's a extremely athletic tight end that loves the middle of the field, exactly where Cleveland doesn't seem to be able to cover anyone. And now I did it because they're not playing Cleveland. Who are
Playing
they playing?
Chargers.
The Chargers. Who played Cleveland?
Yeah, it happens.
Who I was just talking about. Here we are. Hey, it's 10:40, and I'm almost out of whiskey.
Right. My flex spot, I got Khalil Herbert. So he is a running back in Chicago. He's not who everyone thought was going to be the fantasy guy in Chicago after David Montgomery got hurt. Yes, Damian Williams got his points last week. Khalil Herbert got 18 carries.
For 75 yards.
75 yards. It's over 4 yards per carry. That's actually
And if you
kind of
think
good.
about it, if you think about 7.5 points, because he had no receptions. He's not a PPR guy, which is what takes him out of regular fantasy consideration. It's why you didn't hear his name get floated around by us. But if you punch one of those in, you punch in one touchdown. If you can get 12 to 15 points out of your flex spot in DFS, especially for that cheap,
Yup.
You're making life out of it.
At 4,600, and they're going up against the Packers, who gave up rushing yards to Joe Mixon and Samaje Perine. Samaje Perine went 11 for 54, guys. He went 11 for 54.
He had a day.
And Joe Mixon got a touchdown.
Samaje Perine.
So
I had COVID the whole time because there's no way you test positive like 4 hours later and don't have COVID during the game. So he ran over them with COVID.
Yeah, so I like Khalil
You're
Herbert this
blurry.
week. I don't know how that happened.
Okay. Just
I-
didn't know if you knew.
I knew I was. I went to go.
You're just losing it as the seconds go by here. You're just fading into the background of the screen.
I
It's
took
fine.
off the background blur, and it did not help
It
whatsoever.
blurred you. Is there a focus button?
Got it.
There we go.
Kind of. But anyway, and then defenses. We talked about Davis Mills before. He's been shitty all year until last week. And that's who the Colts are playing, are the Houston Texans. I looked and made sure I got the right opponent this time.
I just watched, and I was on the Colts in the beginning and watched them get dismantled, not by Davis Mills. Obviously, the Baltimore Ravens are an entire different beast, but they are very hurt. And that was the thing that turned me off from them. I did go out and spend a little bit more money on the person I was talking about before. And that's Diggs.
Yep.
That's 2 points that I expect to get at some point during the game. They had a pick six callback, or they had a pick six last week. I was really mad when the Colts had the pick six callback last week.
Yeah.
Why? Because I was playing against Jonathan Taylor and Michael Pittman in the league, and I watched them put up 69 points against me, and I lost by 4.
Right.
Thanks, Merrill.
Eh,
Ridiculous. My bench still outscored both of our teams. In case anyone's curious, my bench put up 150 points in that league.
That's good.
And I lost 144 to 146. So 147. Sorry, Merrill. I lost a point on you. But yeah, so my bench went ahead and outscored everyone. Unfortunately, they were on my bench, so those points don't count for anything.
Right.
Which is the worst part of a short league, is that you have a stacked bench every week.
It happens, man.
It does.
You know, that's why we play regular instead of best ball. Because it's all about decisions. Best balls are for the casual fan. We're not casual fantasy football fans.
You got to die every week inside
Yeah.
emotionally. If you're not distressed every week, you're not playing fantasy football.
Exactly. I've yet to go 5-0. I'm in 5 leagues. I've yet to go 5-0 in a week. I'm hoping.
One.
What?
I'm 5-0 in one league.
Oh, good job.
I'm 0-5 in one league too.
No. I meant 5-0, meaning like I win all 5 of my matchups.
Oh, well,
In
I've
one
never
week.
done that because I'm 0-5 in one league.
Yeah,
So
me too. I'm 0-5 in one also, but I'm hoping to turn that around this week. Thank you guys for joining
I'm
us. Okay. Pat, you got anything you want to add? You got anything you want to add at the end here?
No, everything. Nice-
Okay.
Nice, easy week. Let's
Hopefully
we're at.
we don't have any more injuries.
finishing up week 6.
Yes, we are finishing up week
Timothy.
5. Right. So
Week 6.
week 5. All right.
It's not important.
Cheers, everyone at home. Hope you have a good week. Stay happy, stay healthy. We will talk to you guys next week, as always. Bye.